7? Well, 3 reasons. One is my ass is tired. And I'm feeling a little shaky here today. I don't know if I've had some change in medications. I don't know if maybe I stayed up too late, maybe it was too much of a good beverage, or maybe it's just my medication is kind of getting wacky here today. So, but I'm doing all right. I'm going to ask you to take a look in your bulletin here, booklet, not bulletin. It's a church talk, isn't it? To the presentation on Betty's Diner. And at the risk of wearing us out with Betty's Diner, I need to say, or want to say, it was at a GA 3 or 4 years ago that I first was introduced to Carrie Newcomer and Craig playing music here, and have since really gotten very much into her music. And this particular song has just resonated with me over time, and obviously with you too, that somehow it is where I have found in my own experience where the work of the church continues to be done. Everywhere you go, there's hand-wringing about everybody leaving the churches, and what they mean by everybody, they mean everybody that isn't a gray-haired old man or old woman is leaving, and yet the whole spiritual but not religious, I think, speaks to a notion that there is something going on in the lives of people that's deeper than just every day. There's a knowing, there's an awareness. And I think as organizations or as institutions, we perhaps have built barriers to that message. We've tied it up in language, in language that's not available to everybody or isn't authentic to everybody. And I suspect part of what this weekend has felt like for me is kind of a cosmic message that we're struggling with overcoming the same thing, that we're in a primary place to be able to affect that, to bring in those that hunger for things of the Spirit but don't find it in the typical dispensaries. So, anyway, what I would like you to do is, I'm going to do a little Lectio Divina, or you will do a little Lectio Divina, which really is a contemplative listening to the words, typically of Scripture. But in this case, since I think Carrie Newcomer really is speaking of the message within the Scripture, I'd like you to, as the song is playing, just look through your follow along with your lyrics, and any word or phrase that particularly jumps out at you. You don't have to know why. And I would just warn or caution you against getting into a dialogue with yourself explaining why that did that. There's time for that at another time. But just make a note, make a check mark, make a little underline. It could be one word, it could be one phrase, it could be nothing, frankly. But I would like you to do that, and then we'll talk a little bit about what I've cooked up here today. All right? Work it out.
Lost
What jumped out at you?
The ones and wounds and wounds.
The wants and wounds of the human race.
For me, it was the bridge deed. You never know who'll be your witness. Yeah, those 3 lines.
Mine was always let her fill your cup with something kind, and she's heard it all. She don't mind. And look to heaven or sit with us. And she loves him like a mountain lion.
Anything?
Mine is eggs and toast.
Ooh.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
It triggers, it just has to.
That's how we're doing it.
Any others? A remarkable song, I think. And like, I suspect, I'm going to make a presumption, I suspect everybody in this room has probably struggled for the majority of their life with some sense of call. Something within you that called you, that brought you from where you were to this place. And this place is, in a way, a kind of home where you belong. And I'm sure we could all go through our stories about when I was 10 and did this and that. Billy Graham was on the TV or whatever, you know. But the fact of the matter is that this sense of call, this sense of being present with others in a unique way, that fulfills them and fulfills ourselves, I think is a very mysterious tension, and I've certainly dealt with it all my life, and I was thinking, I was ordained several years ago with UAC, and there's the question that always seems to present itself, is this real? Is this real? And there are all kinds of people that will kind of make it sound like they don't think it's real. Well, you're not a real priest. You're not a real bishop. I mean, like, where's your church? You know, kind of thing. And then there'll be other priests that I've run across, and I happen to have had the benefit of a seminary education, so we can talk. We know the lingo, and I think most of you in here are well versed in all the lingo and can hold you in a conversation. But they'll say things, patronizing things like, I think you've got a legitimate ministry, that your ordination is valid. And then, of course, if you say, well, will you let me celebrate at the table sometime? Well, no, your ordination is irregular. That's irregular. Well,
Your what?
my ordination is irregular, which means I didn't go to an Episcopal.
So am I.
Yeah, I know. And after eating Mexican food, I'll be very irregular.
Right.
But there's all kinds of things, and I find that in my ego, the affirmation feels good, and the notice of irregularity hurts.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
it's a little bit of a hurt in it. I was at a church last year called St. Francis by the Sea. I was there for a couple of years, actually. And they recognized the legitimacy of my ordination and would let me go and go to the altar and distribute bread. I could do the distribution of elements of bread, but I could never preside. I could never concelebrate. And I had the adult Bible study and things, and I was listed in the bulletin as priest in residence. It looked very nice to see that on the bulletin. We called Father Ed. And then it hit me one day. I've been sidelined. I've been sidelined because part of what my call is to be a part of that Eucharist, to hold that bread up and break it and say, this is sacrifice for you. And that's not going to happen there. So I elected to kind of hit the streak again and continue to have that question facing me. And it's not like we're going to run around and try to find somewhere where somebody's going to accept me or like me. But again, and I think even among those who are regularly ordained, there are mornings when they look in the mirror and say, is this real? And I mean, I've got a collar, I've got a paper on the wall that says I'm a priest, but am I really a priest? And that's the tension. And I think the willingness to live in that tension, like so many things this weekend, is the answer isn't in the answer is in the question. And like you said something yesterday about the purpose of the journey may well be the obstacle. So the question is important. In your packet, I included a little letter that I wrote. I'm not going to read it to you, but I'll summarize what happened. There's a group of people that I've always been blessed to have a group of people to hang around. It's like when I was a kid, it was the teenage corner gang, and in college it was the beer hall gang, and then there was even a group back in the 60s we called ourselves the Dunkin' Donuts Liberation Movement and Chicken Foot Society. And we basically stood on the street corner and drank wine out of paper cups, and just had radical conversations or something. But now there's this group that meets, and it's been meeting for several years, at a little restaurant called Fat Fellas. And I was there a couple of weeks ago. And it's a little diner, it's Betty's Diner. And I'll show you some pictures in a little while. And the waitresses were all talking to this older gentleman who'd come in, and I was having breakfast, and he was obviously enjoying their company, and they enjoyed his. And he left. And one of them said, one of the gals said to me, you know his story? And I said, no, I've never seen him. She says, well, his wife is in a nursing home and in a coma and has been like that for 6 years. And he sits with her all day, every day, and he comes in here for breakfast and for lunch. And this is where he gets his strength, you know. And so, and I saw the way they ministered to him. And I thought, this isn't McDonald's. This isn't, you know, have it your way, you know, and then go on your way. This is something very special. And I wrote this note to give it to, and I called it "To the Church at Fat Fella's Diner," and gave it to the staff there. And one of the waitresses said the other day, she says, I read the letter and I cried. And I thought, okay, I'm feeling like doing that right now myself. I mean, just when I told that story. And the point of the letter is these people, I call them priests. I say you are priests. You're giving out holy food, and you're giving healing, and you're blessing, and you're doing these things. You're doing the work of a priest, and it needs to be noted. And I said, you've been ordained, set apart to use simple things, bread, water, coffee, eggs, and kindness, to touch others, and to feed their hunger and their spirits. Know that you do this, and it is recognized for being the holy thing that it is. God bless you all. So, anyway, at that point, I knew what my presentation was going to be at GA. And assembled a couple of things that kind of speak to this. Priesthood in its exercise is fundamentally of offering self. That call that niggles at us, that won't go away, has something to do with a very, I don't know, when one is living one's priesthood, it doesn't make sense in the world. Sacrifice is not a growth industry. Donald Trump is not preaching sacrifice and humility. And yet, I think we are in the world, and hopefully not altogether of it, and we're called by this call to do things that we might otherwise not do. So we get this thing to go. Let's see, here we go. It's got to push the right button. All right. There are, suggests Wendell-Berry, no unsacred places. There are only sacred places and desecrated places. It's an interesting thought.
Oh, yeah.
No unsacred places. What is it? You know, the notion you're standing on holy ground, for where God is holy. There is nowhere that God is not. And perhaps that knowledge to understand that it's all sacred and has been broken, abused, desecrated, but not made unsacred, not unredeemable. A wonderful book, by the way, Blue Sapphire of the Mind. Excellent book. One you're familiar. For I was hungry and you gave me food, I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was naked and you gave me clothing. I was sick and you took care of me. I was in prison and you visited me. Some years ago, I had this, it kind of came as a thought and a dream. The notion of the desert diner, and the wonders of the internet, you know, you type Google, you go to images, put in desert diner, and 1,000 pictures show of diners sitting in the middle of a sand dune. You know, it's amazing. Who would build a diner in the desert? But they do, and yet, you know, it's interesting. Scripture talks about a table prepared in the wilderness. You know, and think about it. If you wish to serve hungry and thirsty people, where would you build the diner? You know, you could go to the golf course or the country club, but they all brought their own. They don't need yours. It's the ones who are truly in the abandoned places. And there was a typo in your booklet, a fortuitous typo. My subtitle was Sacrament for Those in Abandoned Places, and the typo in the booklet said Sacrament of Those in Abandoned Places. And perhaps the sacrament is,
Well,
yes, it is for and it is both. Yes. And the sacrament that they are feeds us. There's something mystical that happens with that. I love that picture, by the way. I want to go there, and I have no idea where it is. It's on Google. All right. What I would like to do as far as the presentation, I don't have anything I can tell you. I can't educate you on anything. And I come here, I guess, seeking anecdotal information where you find these things to be true in your life and ministry. Miranda works the midnight counter. We find out a little bit about her. How have you wound up at the midnight counter where you serve in your ministry? Because I know there's nobody that has a brick and mortar building somewhere and they have a finance committee and they're getting to put in a new organ, and there's nobody in here that's got that. So what was your pathway for getting there?
Mine was kind of a tough one. As some of you know, I lost my home, I lost my health, I lost a source of income, and my life turned upside down. I found myself living in subsidized housing in Dubuque in a very small apartment. And my first day there, two of the neighbor ladies introduced themselves to me. And one of them has severe anxiety. I talked to them for a few minutes. They welcomed me to the building, and she turned to me and she said, "We're just so happy you're nice." And we started this 2 or 3 times weekly game night. And it has been my privilege to talk with these people and learn their suffering, and to be able to relate to them because I've been there, done that. And we've also made it a point at some time during the evening, we end up talking philosophy, we end up talking about our own stumbling blocks, and we always end up sharing food together. And it's been kind of I minister to them, but they minister to me too. And it's really, well, I'm still on the journey, so.
Ministry out of your poverty, not out of your accomplishments.
And I've come to realize that perhaps my role is to be that person that puts a face on poverty, and maybe my role is to be the person that gives a face to the person in need. You know, maybe I'm not the one that can give, that can be really active, because I can't be physically active. I'm not one that can give money, but I can be that face that says to someone else, yeah, people do live in poverty. People do find it hard to put food on the table. There are people who deal with pain all the time, and maybe that's my role, is to put a face on it.
No, sorry.
That's exactly. I was thinking in the 1950s movie, Marty, with Ernest Borgnine, probably Dick Dimmer. It was a Patty Chayefsky play that was made into a short movie. And Marty is this, Ernest Borgnine, if you remember, he was not an attractive man. He was kind of an unattractive man. But he's a butcher, and somebody sets him up with this blind date with this girl named Mary, and she comes to the butcher shop, and she's talking to Marty and telling her story, and she's got a sad story. And he says, "Oh, pain, I'll tell you, I'm a professor of pain." You know, that's somehow the empathy. Yeah, I understand your pain because I feel pain. That's quite a gift. Anybody else?
Yeah, something on this morning we had in San Rafael. Paul Gaffney, who's a Disciples of Christ man, he's the interfaith preacher. And he meets once a week with people down at the Aroma Cafe. And he just buys everybody that stops by a cup of coffee, and they sit and talk. This is called the homeless circle, the poor circle. He's doing essentially the same thing that Andy's doing here.
Yeah, those people are not going to go to, St. Stanislaus for the 11 o'clock service where Code Tide is expected.
I think back to when I first got what ministry was. And I was well into my intellectual training at the seminary and still convinced that ministry was about talking about and teaching people about and all this, putting my God stuff on people. And I was given a position, an experience in a hospice. And I took someone a glass of ice water. And that was sacrament. And I think that, maybe similar to what you said, Gerardo, that when one's eyes are open that way, any encounter can become ministry. Any, the bedside can become the altar. I got my training, was completed with my training to be a chaplain, and there were no chaplain jobs available. So I ended up being a Medicare guru in the state. And I, at one point, at the end of my career there, said, well, I wanted to be a priest. But God said, would you use your various gifts to please help 70,000 people in the state of Wisconsin save $2.some million on their Medicare by coordinating programs, and that's how God wants to use it, that's okay too. And then along the way, it was always, chaplain incognito, because someone can come to you for our, the other thing that caught me here was it says, she's got a job that shaky fellow, and after hours she'll write till dawn. The writing till dawn is her priesthood. And she's a tent maker writer.
Yeah.
But our tent making can also be how we can be incognito ministers of the presence of God to people who won't approach us if we have color.
The thing that occurs to me is that I had to look at myself. I'm going to put it up there rather than on me for a second. The thing that occurs to me, and it kind of ties into what we were talking about yesterday, or whatever day that was. I had to write what day it was on the board, by the way, because I wasn't sure. I didn't know if anybody else was in that conundrum, and then I thought of those boards in hospital rooms that always try and orient you to what day it is and what room you're in. But the story of Jacob wrestling with God, and at the end when he says God was in this place and I knew it not. And some of the most powerful ministry experiences that I've had, I didn't know going into them that they were going to be. I probably didn't quite recognize in the middle of it that that's what was happening, because I was very involved with whatever the exchange was. And it seems like it's always with people sharing something of their feelings or their struggle. And it's only after the fact that I sometimes say to Aaron, tongue-in-cheek, I did really good work there. But it's, it's my way of saying that I just recognized that after the fact driving home, that something really powerful happened there. And I've become convinced that while